Hey guys, welcome to the 716 Sports Entertainment review of Monday Night Raw for last night after WrestleMania 41. We finally got there, guys. The Raw after Mania, and boy oh boy was it fun. I mean, WWE really tried to do a lot this time around to kind of just, I don't know, reset, if you will, and really kind of take us past everything that happened on WrestleMania 41 night two with the way the show opened up. So let's just dive right into it and talk about what happened last night. And as always, I'm Mike with 716 Sports Entertainment. Please, as always, guys, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. We really appreciate all the feedback we got over WrestleMania weekend, and we're looking forward to bringing you guys a lot more content and, getting ready for the NFL draft that's coming up this week, as well as just kind of giving our thoughts as we do after every Monday Night Raw and after every SmackDown. And also stay tuned to later on for our full podcast review of Monday Night Raw, where myself, T. Reese, and Mr. Sean O'Neill will give our full thoughts and opinions on everything we did, everything we saw last night with the Raw after WrestleMania. So Raw kicked off with the new undisputed champion, John Cena, coming out to celebrate his controversial win over Cody Rhodes. Um, and I know I was really, really hard on this when we did our review of WrestleMania night two. But I think Cena did the best, with what he was given, right? And you could kind of tell that maybe he was a bit bothered by everything that happened too, and maybe all of the negative fan backlash that happened. But as we've seen with WWE, the show must go on and the story must continue. So, Cena came out and, kind of just cut the usual you people kind of promo, right? And one of the lines that he did deliver during that, where he even kind of criticized the fans for booing even the mention of Cody Rhodes, which I kind of really liked. And it was kind of just like, just sort of, I don't want to say like just blasting the fans, but just sort of, kind of reinforcing the point that he's been making all along, where he was kind of like, you guys don't even know what you want. You're cheering me, and then you're booing me. You're cheering Cody, and then you're booing Cody. And I think he did the best with what he could. Um, After the end of the segment, or at the end of the segment, excuse me, Cena held the title up, told the fans to kind of pull their cameras out to take a picture. And, with that, a surprise out of nowhere RKO from one Randall Keith Orton to very clearly set up what has been kind of advertised for a while now, the match between Cena and Orton, which is likely going to happen at Backlash in St. Louis, where Randy Orton is from. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that was going to happen. And another thing I did like about this as well, Cena initially kind of pointed out that there were 36 dates that he was promised for to sort of appear in 2025 as part of his retirement tour, and he counted down the ones that he had, the Rumble, the Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania, and then obviously all of the shows that he's appeared on, and that number kind of went down to 27. So it's really like he's got 27 more appearances left with which somebody has the opportunity to take the title off of him. And I think that this is a good beat, right? Like this is a good way to kind of deliver a sense of urgency, if you will, to his title reign. And it should be very interesting to see sort of what happens next with that is, they do their best, they do the best they can to kind of, and I hate to keep going back to this, but to clean up the Rock's mess. So that was good. That was a good way to start the show, and I'm glad that that Cena came out and he addressed it and he didn't kind of just disappear like right after WrestleMania, right? So that was good. This led us into our first match of the evening. The women's tag team titles were being redefended as part of the rematch that Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez were promised. I don't even know if they were promised. It just kind of like was announced that it happened. But this was obviously kind of started up more of a bigger story angle, if you will, for Becky and Lyra and what ended up happening at the end of the match there. So Becky and Lyra came out and they kind of had a match, and it was a good match. Like, I mean, Liv obviously looks great, Becky looks great, Lyra looks great, and Raquel had a few moments there where she saved a bunch of pinfalls from, happening. Becky hit a manhandle slam on Liv at one point, and it looked good, like it was a solid match. But this was obviously kind of more for the post angle match, right? So Lyra took the pin, sending the titles back to the Judgment Day, and Becky just kind of went nuts after that and, beat the crap out of her, hit her with multiple manhandle slams. And another instance as well where the crowd was once again kind of behind the heel actually chanting one more when Becky had hit two manhandle slams and Becky got in the ring and did a third one. This really felt rushed to me. Like you needed more time to kind of let this build out. You just like over the course of two nights, all of a sudden now Becky's a heel. I feel like the crowd still wants to cheer Becky, and you needed to spend a bit more time kind of like building this up and making this, I guess just feel more significant because like the last thing I think all of us want to see is Lyra get, buried by this, right? And also, there was no, they made mention of Bailey's injury and mentioned that it was her shoulder, but there was really no timetable and Bailey didn't even appear, right? So let's hope that, they do right by this and they, A, help build this title up, but also B, kind of don't bury Lyra in all of this. We did then next have the unexpected, if you will, return of Rusev, who came back in part as part of the next segment, where the New Day came out to, sort of validate and show off their new tag team championships that they won at WrestleMania, where they were interrupted by Alpha Academy, who quickly wanted to start a match. But this match obviously devolved into chaos relatively quickly as a returning Rusev came out and decimated American Alpha. He tossed Kazawa out of the ring and had a quick beatdown of Otis, and he got him into his submission, and he looked great. Rusev looked like $1 million, and I know that this like wasn't maybe everything the fans wanted to see with how they were going to present him initially. Like, I don't think anybody wants him feuding with American Alpha. But I'm sure that they're going to do more than just that. And I really hope that he's not going to be like a perennial mid-carder and they really have a plan for him, get him into that Intercontinental title picture really quick if he's going to continue to be on the Raw roster. But just a note on Rusev as well, he looks great. Like he looks like $1 million. And I'm sure in the next week or two, we're going to get a promo out of him. And, if I had my way, I would just have him come out and book him like a monster and just have him come out every week and just kill somebody and, get him into that title picture with, everything that's going on in and around the Intercontinental title. We did then have it kind of in the second hour, the show really definitely started to pick up. And one of the things that I really, really liked about it was the presentation of Io Sky. I really, really liked that she came out to the ring, and she cut a really not passionate, but she cut a really just heartfelt promo about, just being the best and beating the best. And, she kind of signaled that she's the world champion and, this is going to have to go through her. And I really like that. You could tell she was genuinely emotional about it. And she looked great. It felt very sincere. And, I was rooting for Io to win at WrestleMania and I'm glad that she did. This led into a surprise NXT Women's Champion Stephanie Vaquer coming out for an impromptu match where, she wanted to challenge the best. And I mean, these women killed it. Obviously, they're some of the best talents in the world for women's wrestling. And they had a hell of a match. They went back and forth through two commercial breaks and, hitting all of their big moves on one another. Stephanie with her leg head slam move, and I loved that commentary had made a note that Booker T that Booker T would have been making his noise during that, which was really funny. Props out to Michael Cole for that as well. Um, but obviously, they weren't going to have either one of these women taking a pin here because, they're both the women's champions, right? So there was a subsequent interruption from Roxanne Perez and then Giulia, which kind of surprised me that they're present. I mean, I knew Roxanne was a heel, but, I guess they're kind of turning Giulia heel as well. But then quickly she was saved by Rhea Ripley, who, came out and sort of chased the heels off. And it's interesting. We have a lot of potential options here, right? For the idea of maybe a cross-brand feud, or just the future of Io versus Rhea as well, right? Because Rhea was not the one to take the pin. So there's a lot of different directions that they could go with this, and it should be really good to see where we go from here. Um, we did have a relatively lengthy celebration for Jey Uso after this, where he came out to celebrate his new World Heavyweight Championship win. And this is where we got our second return or of the evening in a returning Sami Zayn, which awesome. It's always great to see Sammy. I didn't love, and this is kind of a reoccurring theme of the show, the crowd. I was really disappointed in the crowd for this show. Like, they sang Sammy's song a little bit, but they were mostly silent for this. And they were kind of mostly silent for a lot of the stuff. They were mostly silent for Rusev. I mean, they got a little loud at the end of the main event, but it was really kind of disappointing. And this was not the best crowd. And I was just sort of really overall disappointed with this crowd. And this segment in particular kind of did go on a little bit longer than maybe it needed to, but it was obviously a feel-good moment, right? And it really looked like for a second there when, Sammy went to congratulate Jay, to congratulate Jay, that he was kind of looking at the title almost a little jealous. So maybe there's a heel turn in the future for Sammy, which would be really cool to see. I mean, that's just, it's got all the history between those two guys, and if we get a match there down the road, it could be really a lot of fun. Jimmy did come out at the end, and it kind of sort of cut the tension, if you will, and just sort of a feel good moment, right? But like, it'll be interesting to see how long the good days and the happy days sort of last for the sort of the last remaining members of the bloodline here. But all in all, good. I'm happy for Jay, and as I'd mentioned during our review, Jay looks great, and this should be really interesting to sort of see where it goes. This led us into a commercial break, which when we came back from the commercial break, there was Gunther out at the desk yelling at Michael Cole and yelling at Pat McAfee. And this was super interesting. Like, it was just kind of out of the blue. And Michael Cole, in his infinite wisdom, decided to talk a little trash to Gunther, saying, "I'm not the one who tapped out at WrestleMania," because you kind of couldn't really tell what Gunther was saying. But when Michael Cole made that comment, Gunther went and just attempted to choke him out. So obviously, Pat McAfee wasn't going to have any of this, and he went and kind of like did a sort of a running punch to Gunther to try and get him off of Michael Cole. And Michael Cole went down, and then this led to Gunther really viciously choking out Pat McAfee for a while, which led to, all of the refs and all the security to come down, including Adam Pearce and Pat McAfee's boys were all coming in to try and sort of break all of this up. And Gunther had him for a real long time before they were able to escort him out of the building. And then it sort of took the whole segment where we saw Gunther, get escorted out, and then we saw them kind of have to, through a commercial break and a half, take Pat McAfee to the back, and Michael Cole as well. And Adam Pearce told Michael Cole, "Hey, look, go home for the rest of this. You're good to leave." And Michael Cole, in a relatively badass moment for Michael Cole, which was interesting, right? To see him be like, "No, I'm not going to be bullied by this guy. I'm going to go back out there and do my job." And it really helped add a dynamic of realism to the show, which I really liked. And it's going to be very interesting to see where they go with Gunther from all of this. There's a lot of rumors that he may have himself a match with Goldberg coming up down the pipeline, in the summer, because there's been numerous reports that Goldberg is looking to have his kind of final retirement match, and no, I think no better opponent than Gunther for that, right? So, this led us into our next match of the evening, where Dominik Mysterio, freshly minted with his new Intercontinental Championship, had a match with Penta for said title. And obviously, fantastic match. Again, went through a couple commercial breaks, and this was just great. They both looked like $1 million. And it's really good to see the crowd getting behind Dom. I know, like, he was public enemy number one for a long time there, but Penta, obviously, the superior wrestler, right? You could kind of tell, was getting the upper hand through most of the match, hitting all of his big moves. And however, the match kind of got flipped on its head when a returning JD McDonagh came out and helped sort of reinforce the strength of the Judgment Day. And, Finn Balor, you could tell, was looking very conflicted. There was a backstage segment earlier where Balor was kind of like, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And he kind of hinted that he wasn't mad at Dom, but you could kind of clearly tell he was mad at Dom. And there's probably going to be a lot more story to speak there. But, I like the happenings with which is going on for the Judgment Day, and it should be very interesting to see where they go with this. If we're going to end up, obviously Finn is probably going to break away at some point, but I mean, does JD go with him? Do they turn face? Do they stay the heels? Does Judgment Day become the faces? So, it should be, it should be sort of very interesting to see where they go with this in the future. And then this led us into the main event, which saw Seth Rollins and newly, heel manager Paul Heyman come out to the ring. And this was with about maybe 15 to 20 minutes left in the show. And this took a while. Like it took a while for Rollins to, and Paul to make their way to the rings. It was like 6 or 7 minutes before Rollins, even said his first word. The crowd was still obviously singing his song, but he didn't, he definitely dropped, he still had the kind of the goofy Seth Rollins outfits on, but he definitely, he kind of dropped the, just kind of the gimmick a little bit, right? Like he really wasn't being a goof. He was definitely trying to be like a bit more serious. And this segment was wild. Rollins had made a few comments that he won the match, and like and the show is his now, right? Like he's going to be he's the new top guy, if you will. And a few more words got out, and this led to CM Punk coming out to the ring, and CM Punk really kind of looked like the whole segment. CM Punk really kind of he got his ass kicked like twice, and Seth hit him with the stomp after they had a bit of brawling when Punk had sort of turned around to look at Heyman and kind of be like, what did you do? Why did you do this? Almost like he was going to go and attack him, but Rollins knocked him down, hit him with the stomp. And then, the show actually showed the graphics as if it was going to go off the air there. And Heyman had made a comment that, this is the new undisputed, retaining, defending number one star of all of the wrestling universe. And this led to, you kind of hear it in the background, the fans chanting for the OTC, which Roman's music did hit. Roman made his way down to the ring, hit Rollins with a spear, and then turned to face Heyman and sort of went for a Superman punch, sort of clocked him, went over to the corner, did his ooh ah, thing with the crowd, where out of nowhere he was hit with a spear from a hooded guy who was quickly revealed to be Bron Breakker, which that came completely out of nowhere, and it was awesome. It was so awesome. And Breakker tossed Roman out of the ring, and went out of the run side and ran all the way around the ring and speared him through the barricade. And one of the things I noticed here was he looked. I mean, Breaker's just. He's a professional, and you could clearly see him like making sure Reigns was okay, like because it really looked like a vicious hit, and he kind of almost like he kind of knew his place, right? But this was fantastic, and uh, Rollins directed him to toss Roman back into the ring, and Punk was kind of starting to get up there. Rollins hits him with another stomp, and he slams Roman down to the ground, and this was it. And they both got their hands raised, and this is very clearly the new power duo in on Monday Night Raw, and maybe even in all of WWE. And it's gonna be very interesting to see where they go with these two guys. I mean, it's kind of a payoff from a little while ago when, maybe 2 years ago, when Braun was in NXT. Heyman came down there and had made a comment to him like that they're going to work together in the future. And it's sort of very good to see that story paying off from a long time ago, and Paul aligning himself and, kind of really strapping the rocket to Bron Breakker, which, we've made mention on numerous occasions. This guy's going to be a main eventer for a long time to come. And present this guy the right way, and it's gonna really work out in your favor because he's got the look, he's got the mic skills, and he's got, really everything you need in a future champion. So that was Monday Night Raw. And it was a good show, a good reset for WWE, and it's going to be very interesting to see where we go with a lot of these storylines, to see where we go with Rusev, to see where we go with the new, authority, if you will, all the stuff with the Judgment Day and, all the stuff with the in and around surrounding the women's title. There was really a lot of good resets here, I think, for Monday Night Raw, which it desperately needed. And I'm really looking forward to it, like looking forward to where they go. And this is definitely one of the better Raw after Manias that I've seen in a while. So I don't know. I'm kind of leaning in like the 85%, I would say, is where I would kind of give this one. But yeah, so that was our review for Monday Night Raw. Guys, stay tuned to the podcast that we're going to give a little bit later on today, where myself, Mr. T. Reese, and Mr. Sean O'Neill will give our full breakdown and all of our thoughts and opinions on that. And as always, thank you guys so much for joining us, through this WrestleMania weekend. It was a lot of fun putting on all these videos and getting to interact with you guys, and, help us continue to hit those subscribes. We're trying to get to 100, and when we do, we're going to have a really special episode for you. So thanks so much, guys, for all of your support, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great day.